Okay, what is the oldest kind of banking fraud in the book? Forged checks. So today we found out that the IDFC First Bank has lost 590 crore rupees because 4 of its employees from the Chandigarh branch forged checks and took the money out of the account of the government of Haryana. And it only came to light when the books were tallied. And banking fraud in India has hit such a massive level and it's so pervasive. That's what we're going to talk about today. What really happened with this bank and what we know about this scam so far and why Indian banks are so vulnerable when it comes to banking fraud. All right, let's take a look at what has happened so far. IDFC First Bank actually announced to the stock market yesterday through a regulatory filing. It disclosed that it lost 590 crore rupees in a fraud involving Haryana government bank accounts, and apparently was carried out by its own employees in collusion with external parties where they forged checks and took money out of the account. The disclosure was filed to the stock market this morning. When the stock opened, it crashed 20%. It hit a lower circuit, which means it fell so much that trading had to be suspended for the day. The bank has also said it's informed the RBI, it's filed a police complaint, it's suspended 4 employees, nearly 600 crore rupees, 4 employees, and ordered an independent forensic audit by KPMG. I mean, this fraud itself, it just caused massive concern. But before we go further, let me just tell you quickly what is the IDFC First Bank, right? December 2018, there was a merger of IDFC and Capital First, and this bank sort of pitched itself as a new age private bank with a strong grip on technology, user interface and user experience, and that it kept saying that it's very tightly governed and very tightly disciplined. And when the fraud hit, of course, the big thing is that it cuts against the bank's very carefully, designed image. As of December 31st, 2025, it has 35 million customers. It has a customer business of 5.6 lakh crore rupees, and it operates over 1,000 branches all over India. The Haryana government has de-empaneled IDFC First from any government business with immediate effect, which means no government funds will be invested, transacted, parked through this, through this bank, and that will hurt the bank because government money tends to be obviously very large, very stable, and very low-cost deposits. But what I found fascinating about this story, and the reason why I'm bringing it up, is how the fraud was detected. What happened was basically the fraud was going on for a large amount of time, and we don't really know over what period of time the money was actually stolen. The red flag came when the Haryana government apparently asked the bank to close some of its accounts and transfer the money elsewhere. And when that was being processed, the bank noticed that the amount of money that the government department was claiming should be in that account did not match what the bank's books had showed. And that single discrepancy then triggered a deeper internal review, and it turns out that several more Haryana government bank accounts and entities raised similar complaints. Each one claimed that the balances were higher in their books than what the banking system reflected. Primarily, the assessment has showed that there were irregularities concentrated to a specific cluster of accounts linked to one branch in Chandigarh, and the bank says other customers and branches are not affected. So what exactly happened? According to CEO V. Vaidyanathan, it's not a digital fraud. It's not a digital breach of any sort of the accounts. He says it was actually physical checks that were allegedly forged. He said that debit instructions were manually processed by the branch, employees colluded to bypass all safeguards, and funds were transferred to suspicious beneficiary accounts outside of the bank. Now consider this, 4 people have stolen 590 crore rupees from the government. I mean, think of the audacity of this crime, right? So it's very critical here to notice that the bank says controls are in place, the marker checker systems were being used, and alerts and statements, but collusion managed to cut through all of these things. Technology failed because the humans just outsmarted it, and obviously there aren't enough checks and balances in this bank. Now the bank says 490 crore rupees was flagged through balance confirmations, and an additional 100 crore rupees added as a buffer for further internal review. So they're expecting, 490 crore rupees they have confirmed, they're expecting 100 crore rupees as they continue to check accounts, and the management has described 590 crore rupees as an outer estimate for now. saying that it wanted to be conservative and transparent and upfront rather than drip feeding bad news to both customers and to the stock market. Recoveries are being pursued. Other banks are cooperating in tracking the linked accounts. Now, specifically for this bank, will the bank hurt financially? It's going to be painful, but maybe not fatal, because 20 to 20% of the hit is there. It's hit about 25% of the profits of this bank on an annual basis. It's 1% of the net worth. The bank says it will remain profitable, but obviously this was going to bring in greater scrutiny. It's a possible movement of government money back to PSU banks, and there's going to be a lot of reaction to what we've seen. Like I told you, the markets reacted by the share price falling 20%. So 14,300 crore rupees of investor wealth was wiped out by that fall. Major First Bank, Government of India, LIC, other insurers, retail investors hold about 15% of that bank stock. Who's in charge of banking? The RBI. What has the RBI said? The RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra said that the regulator is monitoring the situation closely, that there's no systemic risk, that banks remain well capitalized and capital adequacy is at 17%. The reassurance sort of calmed immediate panic, apparently, according to some reports. But I don't understand how the RBI can actually tell us that there is no systemic risk in our banking right now, because of the size of this fraud and for how long it went undetected, and the fact that forged checks. I mean, the system is only the problem. Now, how can you say that there is no systemic risk? Let's just zoom out for a second and look at banking fraud in India. In FY23, there was a total of 18,979 rupees lost to bank, 79 crore rupees lost to bank frauds. 18,000 crore rupees. 2025, that number was 36,000 crore rupees. It doubled in 2 years' time. 36,000 crore rupees of fraud. And to give you perspective on this particular case of the 590 crore rupees, you'll remember the Nirav Modi scam, Punjab National Bank fraud in 2018. 13,000 crore rupees was stolen because it was just passed through the system by what we understand to be just a couple of employees who were helping out. Yes Bank crisis in 2020, tens and thousands of crore rupees. ABG shipyard crisis was India's largest banking fraud, 22,000 crore rupees. Now, outside of these massive numbers that we see, these big stories, there's also the digital arrest scam where fraudsters impersonate police and CBI and ED officials over video calls and get people to pay money to keep themselves out of trouble. And it just goes to show you how little trust Indian citizens have in the police and the investigating agencies, that they're willing to pay money in this manner. There's the KYC bank detail phishing, where basically victims are tricked into sharing their OTPs, sharing their account numbers, sharing their PAN card, sharing their access links, because someone calls them and says, oh, I'm calling from the bank and you need to give me these details, otherwise your bank account will be locked. And people just give those details because a lot of people in India don't understand this kind of crime. And senior citizens are increasingly targeted. They feel intimidated. They feel pressured by the way banks function and the fact that banks are not kind to senior citizens, to any customer actually. The banks are harsh in the way they treat customers, and as a result, senior citizens tend to be particularly vulnerable and they get intimidated and pressured to share details really quickly. The pattern is clear in all of this. Big ticket banking frauds will obviously damage institutions over the years, although the RBI seems to deny it. What it does is erodes trust in the financial system, but it puts pressure on regular account holders like you and me. And I'll tell you why. The banking system has become vulnerable today because banks operate at such a massive scale. Just the sheer size of transactions that we're talking about, the number of accounts, just the amount of money moving in our system makes it complex. As the scale grows, supervision comes down. Remember, RBI actual audits don't catch the problems as we have seen in the past. The biggest frauds are increasingly human collusion and not technical loopholes, because insiders know how to override the system and the loopholes in the system. pressure to grow fast, especially to attract government and institutional deposits. And finally, many frauds are detected very late. By the time the customer notices, the money is already gone. I know several cases of people who have received, LIC maturity amounts into their bank accounts, and the money's just gone because someone has fished out of that account. So there's also a massive problem of data leaking, where there is access. Obviously, defrauders and criminals have access to data, phone numbers, bank account details, which branch, which bank. So they're able to call you and pretend to be from a certain branch. They're able to say, your LIC policy is actually maturing. I can help you with this. And you give them those details and the money is gone. Of course, we've had both the bank and the RBI tell us that depositors are safe. There's nothing to worry about. Depositors in India are insured up to 5 lakh rupees, which means that if you have money sitting in a bank account up to 5 lakh rupees, you can claim insurance if that money is stolen. The banks do absorb the losses. Capital markets buffer those, the pain as well. But at the end of the day, the important thing to remember, at least I believe, is that the customer is always the one who pays. And I'll tell you how, because every time something like this happens, 590 crore rupees is real money. This is not fake money. The bank is going to have to make up that money somehow, and it will come from higher rates and fines, and they will impose more fines on regular customers who don't maintain that minimum balance. They will put more charges and pass on charges for using your account, for filing a check, for doing something else, for swiping your card. There will be higher loan rates. There'll be more fees. There's going to be more friction as well. So every time this happens, obviously there's tighter KYC, there's more checks, there's slower service, and honest customers actually wind up paying. There's weaker credit flow, so small borrowers receive the brunt of it. Banks are really mean and rude and unpleasant to small borrowers. Small businesses suffer even further because the checks and balances make it more and more difficult for them to do business and to raise the money they need in order to go from month to month. And then, of course, there is the loss of trust. In this case, ordinary Indians were hit twice. Once as depositors, and the second because they are indirect investors through, say, LIC or government holdings, and they have lost money twice. Fraud is no longer rare. It is everywhere. It is targeting each and every one of us all the time. Control fails when governance fails, and banks then are just shoring us up on paper saying, no, we're fine. But what they're going to do is they're going to charge the average customer more in order to make up for that. Bottom line for me is we've just come out of a week of calling ourselves like the possible AI leaders of the global south. Not my words. And that's great. That's fantastic. But can we please use technology and AI or whatever else you have at your disposal to plug these problems? I mean, how do we live in this year, in this day and age, where nearly 600 crore rupees can go vanishing from a bank using forged checks and no one noticed? Which means that if the Haryana government did not decide to move its accounts from one branch to another, no one would have noticed even then, and they would just continue stealing money. I mean, it is ridiculous. The payoff for honesty is becoming smaller and smaller every day, where honest people are just getting burdened more and more. More taxes, more fees, more stress in our cities, really unpleasant way of life. And we're constantly hearing about this sort of crime, and we're constantly hearing about money that is vanishing with zero accountability. If we truly mean to be leaders of the global south or of AI or of tech or whatever else we're calling ourselves, we need to start behaving like it. You can't have a banking system that's leaky like a sieve. The RBI has acknowledged that banking fraud is a problem. Parliament has acknowledged that banking fraud is a problem. And who are we waiting? Who else needs to acknowledge before we actually do something about the problem? Is there anybody else? I don't think so. These are the guys who need to work on it. So why aren't we fixing the problem? Why aren't we looking at these banks more closely to figure out what is wrong with the system? We keep piling up more and more innovation. Like, okay, great, UPI was fantastic, Jandan was fantastic. Let's give everybody bank accounts. That is great. We moved everybody onto the UPI system. But you need to be able to plug these problems, because what you have now is a massive population of people who are using your banking services when your banking services are not safe for them. People who don't understand OTPs and people who don't understand how sensitive their login information is, and who might easily get pressured by someone saying, I'm calling from your local bank, please give me these details immediately. So the range stems from someone asking for your OTP to someone forging a check and just taking 600 crore rupees. It's just mind-boggling. And there has to be some accountability. The accountability has straight up start from the RBI. The buck stops at the RBI, and I can't imagine the RBI telling us that there is no systemic problem. Sir, आपकी पूरी system में problem है. The whole system has maggots in it. You have to check the whole system. Leave me a comment in the comment section of what you think right now of banking fraud. And if we should do, and I've been thinking about this for a while, and this would be useful actually, should we do a video explaining to senior citizens in various Indian languages all the things not to do when it comes to banking fraud to keep your money safe? If you think it's a good idea, leave me a comment and we'll actually work on that. Thanks for watching.